One of a few rare moments.
I don't like how you're smiling.
I'm in the presence of elite lyricists, songwriters, creators, artists. First of all, I'm going to start with a disclaimer. All the conversations we're going to have here today are not to sway anybody who's got ambitions to go into this business. We're not trying to sway your decision. We're just trying to give you the relevant information so you go into this game fully armed and ready for what this game has for you. I just felt like it's very important to get that out of the way. I'm in the presence of Krytic.
How you doing, man?
How you doing, fam?
I'm great, bro. How you doing?
No, I'm very good. You know what
I'm happy to be here, man. I'm happy to be here. I wonder what this gonna be. Well, let's go.
A well-renowned lyricist, artist, been in the game for a minute and, broken numerous records.
Thank you, sir.
Very proud, very proud.
Thank you, sir.
And of course, we have the king of the new wave, the leader of the new school, Chanda Mbao. Everybody's very familiar with this gentleman over here, the hit maker.
Yes,
saying the trendsetter.
Yes, sir, Mr. International.
You know what I mean? Like I said, in the presence of elite. So you know what, gents, we're gonna jump straight into it. We're gonna start off the conversation with as artists who primarily write the lyrics in English, right? In an African context, we all know what the conversation is based around that. So I'd like to hear from you guys. Let me start with you. What's your journey been like, and what obstacles, or I'm looking at the pros and cons of you rapping in English in an African setup. I keep on saying African setup because we all know, different countries have got their own native tongues.
Yeah.
So, primarily you rap in English. So would you feel like there was any hindrance or obstacles that you faced?
Hell yeah. What you talking about? Hell yeah. I mean, if you even look back to a certain time in Zed hip hop, there was, I think even before our generation, there was a bunch of artists who are rapping in English, and then they switched, and Israel for one, right? He was an English rapper, and you switched it up. So there was always this little, I don't even know what it is though, because people will go from listening to a Zambian hip hop song and saying this is in English and it doesn't sit well with me, and the next song on their playlist is a J. Cole song, and they love that. So I've always looked at it as a little bit of just a kind of inferiority complex. Okay. You know what I mean? Okay. It's like, no, I don't like it when you are speaking English. Come to my level so that we talk together the language. In that very accent.
Unhinged. Very unhinged.
It's always been just a... But after some time, you start to realize it's not the issue, man. The issue is the music.
Okay, let me put it for you this way. Do you feel like you missed out on a couple of ears because of said challenge?
I guess, I guess there's some people who warm up more to local languages. I guess there's an audience that just likes the music to be a certain way, but this is hip hop. You know what I mean? I don't know. I come from the era where the idea is not to fit in.
Nice.
You know what I mean? That's what my thing was. So even when people are like, "You're standing out," I'm like, "Yeah, that's the point." You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to get your attention by doing something different. You know what I mean? So, yeah, around there.
In terms of frustrations. Because the reason I ask, I totally hear you and what you're saying, right? But in terms of making hip hop music in general, the main objective is to reach as wider audience as possible.
Yeah.
So does it come with frustrations knowing that there's people who might not be able to appreciate your skill set and what you bring to the game because you rap primarily in English?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. But like I said again, you got to know the horse you rode into town on, you know what I mean? I knew what I was getting into, even just being in Ndola. First days before I got on radio, I was like, this is so niche. You know what I mean? You're doing a crazy thing, my boy. You're in for hard, prepare yourself. So I knew, coming into the game, it was going to be, just breaking down walls, breaking down stereotypes. Even at a certain point, just showing people like, oh, I can also do it in vernac. You know, on top of that, we can mix it up. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be one thing. So, yeah, man, there was pressure, but that's what this game is, man. It's not supposed to be easy. You know, that's the whole point. The easy rappers aren't on this pod. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? The people who take the easy route don't end up sitting here and answering questions about this.
So you're turning it into a contact sport, basically.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I can see Chanda is
He's trying to find a very PC way of saying
No. Just listening.
Yeah.
So from your point of view, bro, like because I know for you, like it was very different because you were not based in Zambia for a while. You were in the States, so your level of exposure was different. So obviously, you know, the more time you spend in a place, it affects your dialect, how you pronounce it in words, and how you say things. So I'm pretty sure for you it was a bigger challenge coming back. So did you ever feel the pressure? Like, okay, let me start like this. When you first got here, what was your like projection wise in terms of like the type of hip hop you're gonna make? Did you ever consider like, okay, maybe I should go, you know, vernac, maybe mix it up a little bit, reach more people, or did you just say, you know what, I'm gonna rap how I rap, and this is me?
Initially, I wasn't gonna do music at all. I was like, there's no market here for the stuff that like I'm interested in. So I'm not gonna even waste my time. That was my initial assessment of the market. And it was actually a funny story. I like to shout people out where I guess credit is due. It was a conversation with Kaladocious that made me consider dropping music. Yeah.
Okay.
Because he's like, man, no, I just feel like, you know, like now's the right time for people like us that have a different vision for Zambian music. He's like, obviously, like my influence has been dancehall, but like I like just have a different way I want to do things, and you know, and so just kind of that vision, you know, it was nice to meet a kindred spirit in terms of the vision for Zambian music, and I was like, you know what, let me just, you know, drop a song or two.
That's how it started.
Yeah.
So like, okay, based off that conversation, did you ever at any point think, okay, maybe to reach more people?
No. So here's my thing. I mean, like, I'll just be frank. Like, I'm not fluent enough in any vernacular language to like rap a full song. So my whole thing with here's my like belief about music. I think music ultimately is about authentic voice. So when people have all these debates about no English, no Bemba, no this guy shouldn't be rapping in Bemba because we'll never go international. No, this guy shouldn't be rapping in, all that for me is neither here nor there. Ultimately, music is about authentic voice. If you are from Morocco and what you know and your life experience is in Arabic from Morocco, sing like that, because that's your authentic
That's what you
voice.
know.
Yeah.
This, for me, rapping in English is my authentic voice. Like there's no language, maybe Spanish, but even not there's no language
Drop
where I
something
can
in Spanish. Drop something.
Right, but then I could, but for me, it's my authentic voice. You know, it's my life experience. It's the hip hop I grew up listening to. You know what I mean? So it just speaks to so many aspects of my actual life. You know that it didn't make sense for me to do it any other way. You know? So that's how I view it. It's authentic voice. So I think nobody in the Zambian game or in any other game should be looking for a voice that's not theirs.
True.
You know, if it's your voice, it's your voice.
Did it ever get to you in your creative process? Like maybe people bring in that type of conversation in your direction while you're creating?
So the way I always looked at it is I was just like, okay, when I make an assessment of my authentic voice and my actual life story, for me, the thematic is very much of a returnee in a way, right? So that's a theme that's there. It's like there's songs that I have, like, you know, I did have this song where someone did a hook for me, and the song was called Ifiapamwezu, and it's about my journey of coming back home, you know, and about the things that I appreciate about home, the things that whatever, right? Because that's my story, you know what I mean? So my story is nuanced. I can speak to my direct life experience, which is this whatever, somewhat itinerant individual who's been in several geographies, but who ultimately has always had the hunger and ultimately did come back home. So I told my story in that sense with the nuance.
Okay. And taking in your perspective, did anything change? Because you've been in the game for a minute, like with the said conversation. I know for a fact that it's been around for quite a while. Did anything change for you in your creative process?
I love the challenge of it, right? So with me, it was like they pair me with K-Star, right? And like, okay, let's
lunatic, by the way, and another lunatic, another lunatic.
Mad people go together. Like, it was like, let's try to bridge this gap by creating alter egos. Right, so like let's create these two characters into one that can shoulder the English thing. So even when I went to doing vernac, I always had in the back of my mind like, this is just to prop up what I really want to do. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, fine. You want to hear some vernac? I'll use it as a challenge. Like, can I be as dope as I am in English in vernac? You know, so
nice.
I made it a little exciting for myself. I wasn't even noticing what was going on around. It was just like, be dope, you know what I mean? That's it. That's the only job I had, you know. And yeah, you make a few changes here and there, but ultimately, like I say, I've always looked at it as art. You know, it should be challenging. It should make me feel a way. You know, so following the language down that path, I was like, yeah, I found new things. I didn't know about. Language in Bemba, language in Nyanja, you know what I mean? You discover new euphemisms, new ways to say things that you couldn't really say in English. Because vernac also has its own sauce.
True.
You know what I mean?
True.
It's also got this kaon soap in the building, you know? So yeah, it was, and also just to get to do it with somebody who's so malleable like K-Star. You know what I mean? He also made it easy for me to make that switch. It wasn't so awkward.
It's so crazy how K-Star found like, he found a balance, because when K-Star raps, you don't know where he's going to land.
Yeah.
Especially when he's kicking a verse, he can like switch.
Yeah.
With minimal effort, like it just dances between the two.
It's a thing that happens even in. Funny enough, there's a book being written at the Confucius Center right now. They're using Zambian music to study code switching, which is how your brain works. You know what I mean? Like your brain works in a certain language. So they are using 2-1 in particular to be like, you guys were broaching like these deep concepts on a comedic level while switching between languages. You know what I mean? Where you don't have the words to say it in English, you come and take it to Nyanja. You know what I mean? Like even amongst Bemba and Nyanja, it's a whole different like cadence and switch and stuff like that. So like for me, it's always just been something to explore. You know, it's never been an issue. Like it's language. It's still the thing I fell in love with doing. You know what I mean? It's still words for me. You know what I mean? Either way,
words are words.
Either way, whatever language, words are words. And like he said, music transcends language. You know what I mean? In Zed, we grew up on a huge Kwaito culture. We didn't know half the stuff that's being said.
True.
You know what I mean? But you just get the feel and you go. So I don't really get the issue, man. Dude, like you said, do you be you, man. The internet is big enough to show us now there's enough space for everyone. True. You know what I mean? We're not fighting for something small. And that's where this thing of let me switch to this to appeal to this so I can be here comes from. There's enough space for make your own lane, do your own thing. You'll be good, you know?
As Chanda said, speak your truth, yeah?
Yeah, no, I mean, going back to like, I guess some of the first questions you guys were discussing, I think I'm a very like, I guess, macro thinker. So I always think about the things that I do or any one person does within the context of the environment, ecosystem, or general surrounding that they exist within, you know. And I find, you know, going to the point I was making, like why there's that perception about English rap. It's something I've asked myself too, but I always challenge people. So there's two things to discuss, but I always challenge people to say the criticisms that people find about music most often are not unique to music, right? So if you look at just generally how we consume culture as Zambians, we're pretty large importers of not only products, but also of knowledge and ideas and entertainment, right? So it's not a unique thing. Like, so even this argument that, oh, Zambian music doesn't have its own sound, right? People criticize, often listeners will criticize us, musicians, for not having, I guess, produced a authentic enough sound in their eyes. I always challenge them. I say, okay, fair, if that's your assessment. When's the last time you read a Zambian book? Most of the time.
When was the last time you watched a Zambian film?
Most of the time, they can't remember. And I'm like, that is what's happening at a macro level with all of us as Zambians. This is not like, you know what I'm saying? So it's not like something that like the musicians are doing this thing where we're like, no, we just want to be super Anglo. It's just generally as a society, you know what I mean? There's a lot left to be desired in terms of, I guess education in various spheres. There's a lot. It's a big conversation. But I mean, my assessment in music is that it's not even that much of an issue. I think that, like you said, there's space. I am a big believer in niches. So I call it the culture of subcultures. In my view, or in my personal experience, Zambian entertainment culture, at least, and I would argue that this is the case for everything in Zambia, does not champion niches very much, where we're not oriented towards subculture. We are very mainstream in Zambia. If something is not the mainstream, people are like, it's almost like they're scared about whether to take a chance on it or not. So when I first started dropping songs, people would ask me, when are you collaborating with X, X person, Z person, 1, 2, 3, and they would always ask me this, and I was like, why are they so concerned about when I'm collaborating with these specific people? And then it dawned on me, it's because they didn't know where to place me, and in order to place me and know whether they should like me or not, they had to put me in adjacency to something which they already know. You know what I mean? So I think there's like also like where we're not very, I don't know, I guess avant-garde about our taste in Zambia. But anyway, I say that all that to say, my lesson, and then the thing that I like to encourage people about, besides the space for the niches and the culture of subcultures, is that we actually need it all. If you look at any successful music industry or whatever, there is a breadth and depth to what they have. So SA, for example, SA is SA because they have Amapiano, they have house, they have Nasty C, all the hip hop cats. That's why that industry has gravitas. If there were only one or two guys over here, it wouldn't have the gravitas. But they've got hundreds of artists straddling all sorts of genres, English, Kosa, Zulu, Pedi, whatever, you know what I mean? So, and we need that depth. So rather than people shying away from, this person speaks English, this person, we need it all.
Yeah. Fear of failure is limiting, though. I mean, a lot of people would say, first of all, it's not easy to choose music as a career path
in Zambia.
Like, I think in Africa, like in general, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people wouldn't encourage someone to say, like, look, I have a dream and I want to do this. They would rather sway you towards something that's a little bit more safer. You know what I mean? So I think the idea of like paving your own path comes with the fear of failure, number one. So okay, now based on that, like what do you think is lacking in the game right now? Because I mean, you gents have been in the game for a minute, and you've watched it evolve in different ways. I mean, from style to presentation to like everything in general, like just how the business of music goes. What do you think is lacking right now, or like from a personal point of view? Not to say that what you're gonna say is like concrete fact or whatever, but like personally, like what do you feel is lacking that's going to make things easier going forward? Because I feel like it gets to a point where there has to be a chosen few who are going to take the risk, you know what I mean, and make changes and do things a certain way. So you never know who you could inspire, man. Because like, for example, when we did what we did, it was like, you know what? Chances are we're not gonna get airplay. We're not gonna get booked for shows. You know what I mean? And it was during a crazy time when like music didn't hit radio. You remember that? You know what I mean? Like we never got played on like your Radio 4s. Or,
we had one hip hop show. At one point there was only hip hop to rock the block, and we were all struggling for that 1 hour.
You know what I mean? And I remember even with that, it was like cream of the crop. Like you felt like I'm part of the conversation when your record plays amongst all these other cats who are out there dropping music. You know what I mean? So I feel like the group within that time, everyone took a risk. Because I remember 2-1 took a risk. First of all, like the type of music they were making. No one was making that type of music. Zone Fam took a risk. You know what I mean? So
Crisis took a risk. You know what I mean?
The whole damn chain took a risk.
What was that other guy called? Nemo? There was an album that dropped before Crisis, and it was very awkward. I remember seeing it and I was like, damn, that's a high bet to make at this time, putting out a hip hop album. When Crisis did it, it was a little bit more like, okay, now we're getting familiar with it. But he was a kid who used to be in the States, and then he came back here and he released an album. If I remember the name.
That's more weight on your shoulders, bro. That sounds like you, bro.
No, this was a guy. He was a small guy, like a guy. But like you're saying, the risks.
Yeah, because I mean, based off that, I mean, that's the reason why I was saying I'm in the presence of the elite, because I know 2-1 did what you guys did, but even on an individual basis, I know K-Star used to crush it
Yeah.
in freestyles, like ciphers. So did you. So there's like a backdrop of like preparation before you could actually get to a point and say, no, I'm gonna take this risk and do that. For example, when Chanda dropped like the different waves, that's what I call them. When they dropped the different
When
waves.
the waves came through.
You know what I mean? When the waves came through, I mean, he was doing things like a lot of people didn't think was possible.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the honest truth.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he was getting like big features on
The
the
collab
records.
alone.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Alone, people are like, whoa.
And during that period, it's like we thinking to get a collab, you need like big bags, and
Yeah.
you know, like it just seems like something so like impossible to achieve. So my question is, what do you think is lacking now? Because someone has to take the risk, like going forward, so that things can switch. Because otherwise, the game is going to remain stagnant or like exactly where it's at. So if you were to point something out personally, what would
Two
you
things.
think?
Firstly, obviously, the one we always harp on, structure, right? Man, we are playing today, Buddha. We're playing games. These are jokes.
Vedek words, ladies and
You
gentlemen.
know what I mean?
He's
Like-
capable. He's capable.
if you look at other industries, like even the trip I took to SA, and I just saw the structure and the spaces that structure creates for even subcultures. You know what I mean? I was hanging out with the one of the DJs from Black Motion. So I went to a club where he was playing, and he was like, yo, you want to perform? All right. And I was like, can they? He's like, yeah, we can, like, there's, you know, and you can even tell the crowd is willing and ready for something new, right? Structure, man. We're flying blind. We've been flying blind for a long time. From somewhere after the Mondo music era, we've been flying blind. It's been the wild, wild west out here, you know what I mean? This is what leads to cliques forming. This is what leads to the rinse and repeat of the same faces all over again. No disrespect, man. Get your bread, boo boo. You know what I mean? Like no disrespect to anyone. It's just like you said, we need a breadth and depth to it. You know what I mean? And the thing that I feel is going to bring that outside of structure is risk. We need to be willing to take way more risks than we are taking. You know what I mean? It's like, I've got this phrase I say, we're playing the game on easy. You know what I mean? Like, if it was a video game, I feel like we're playing it on the easiest setting. We need to take risks if we need to go out there and establish ourselves. Samba the Great is taking risks. You know what I mean? You pack a bunch of people on the thing and you go there and you're going to do the show over there. And, you know, those are the risks. We're very comfortable in this environment because we sort of hacked it and how it works for us, you know. But the second we cross that border, we are mediocre. You know what I mean? And that's I feel like we need to level up in that aspect. You know, over here it's like, cool, man. We're used to it. You know what I mean? Guys feel yeah. You know what I mean? It's my home. You even buy me a dope.
Yeah.
But the second you cross the border, it's like it's an away game, and they'll see the holes in your defense, bro. They will see, and we've been seeing this thing happening.
The counterattacks are fast.
Yeah, it's not easy out there. Even just to go out there and to hear that, especially in my genre, to hear that people out there don't really know the MCs here.
Yeah, true.
You know, like we spend so much time listening to what's outside there. Why don't they also know us? You know, what are we doing wrong? We're not taking enough risks. We're not making enough music that's, you know what I mean? That's got that thing that'll get people like, damn, he really said that, or he really did that, you know? That's my take on it. We just need a little bit more risk and a little bit more structure.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I tend to agree with those sentiments, and perhaps somewhat adjacent to this idea of structure, because I mean, I talk about that one a lot. Obviously, I've had some conversations with certain people in this room about that topic before, but I guess adjacent to that, and perhaps slightly more directly, I think access to commercial opportunity is a big one. Because what in my assessment, having spent like the time I've spent here, it's not for a lack of talent. It's not even for a lack of the diversity among the talent. You know, we have kids that can do whatever, you know, kids that can rap, kids that can sing, kids that can do both, kids that can do like incredible Afrobeat but in vernac, kids that can do Afrobeat in English or whatever, you know what I mean? We have a lot, but what there is missing, and this is something that, you know, as musicians, I think we all must relate to on some level, is, you know, music. One thing that I like to tell kids is music is actually a capital intensive.
No,
Yeah.
definitely.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
Very
No one
expensive.
talks about, no one talks about
Yeah.
it when you're starting.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, there's this like image sold that like,
Dreams.
Yeah, it's the lottery. The
Yeah.
image that's projected is this lottery that you just like accidentally blow up, and then after that moment,
Yeah.
everything's okay. But
Yeah.
I want to tell all the kids that, in my view anyway, that's not how it works. Don't bank on that, nor should that even necessarily be how it works, you know? So it's a capital intensive thing, and I think to sustain that and to be able to create the structure and create and plug in and amplify the stuff that we want to see, we need the commercial opportunities to be able to reinvest in this. Because and I know firsthand, man, I'm fully self-funded. So all the videos, all that stuff that you guys have ever seen of me, that's my own pocket. And so
That sounds
so, you know what I'm saying? So I'm thinking about the kid who doesn't have what I
access to
have,
that. Yeah.
bro. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
impossible. Like, if I'm tired, you know what I'm saying? Like, that kid doesn't stand a chance. You know, see, like, seriously.
Yeah.
So we need to fix that. Like,
But how do we go about fixing something like that, though? Do you think we need to make ourselves more marketable, I guess, to organizations and people who can actually fund and pump money into something like that?
yeah, so funny enough, I've literally just come from a conversation with someone who places music at like a major, I guess, production company in the US. Because, so it's a thing, anyway, I'll talk about it without names, but something that I've always prioritized and like tried to do, and, you know, with limited success, admittedly, but it's something I always try and do, is I always try and push Zambian music to any tastemaker I've ever met. So, I've sent, like, I make these little playlists. I'll put like 10, 12, 15 songs. I've spoken to a guy who was like head of one of the departments of music at Spotify, head of one of the departments of music at YouTube, somebody who places music for Disney. You know, I've spoken with these random people, and I always find a way and say, hey, just listen to this music and tell me what you think. And my thinking has always been, what I do, I'll take like I say, 10, 12, 15 songs of different people from different types of Zambian music. Because my whole thing is, I don't care what they like, as long as
Something
as long as if they like something, even if it's one, if it's me, I don't care. But if one person can just
Open
then
the
at
door.
least, you know what I'm saying, we can find a way that number 2, then number 3, then eventually, you know what I'm
Opens the
saying?
door, and then
You know what I mean?
everyone can go in.
So one of the avenues that I think, like, to get very specific or concrete about what you're asking, I think that synchronization is a huge opportunity. Because the reason I say that is because, you know, a lot of the conversations that happen about music and African music often have to do with numbers. And something like sync doesn't require numbers. It just requires very solid art and organization and connecting with people and submitting the art.
That's actually dope that you brought that up, because a lot of people actually think numbers translate to getting synced into different positions, like music-wise. It's not about that.
No, less so.
It's back to, like you said, it's back to the music, man. It's back to the music. You can clothe it the way you want to clothe it. You can put the biggest videos if you want to say, you know what I mean? You can, but at the end of the thing, all those are just promos for a song. And if the song ain't good, you know what I mean? Like, there's only so far you can go promoting it. You know, good for you, promo the thing. But in 2 weeks, will I think about this? And there's a reason for that, because there's these songs we see that are charting for weeks and blah, 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 blah. 6 people sat in a room and made sure that song was that song. You know, you Panty Warrior your way through 3 verses, got a guy to mix the thing for you, and you send it out. You put it on the DSPs, right? They hear it and they're like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just the song. The song is the problem. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I like it because that's like a good segue into my next question that I want to ask. Both of you have emphasized the importance of structure. Structure. What do you guys think of the way music is being released? Because times have changed now, right? Like, a hit can come off something like TikTok, and that's like what, 30 25 seconds, and next thing you know, it's a continental sensation.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you're touring. Like, there's so many ways and different avenues for songs to blow up now. So that begs the question, like, the game has changed in that aspect. Because, I mean, back then it was like, you know, the song is ready, you market the song, you make sure it goes to the right DJs, da, da, da. Do you feel like the system for that has changed? Is that like a dying art now? Because I know for a fact, I know DJs, for a lack of a better term, who make piano records, who just produced a record in their room, and right now they touring globally, like they touring, and this is off like one record, and you know, luckily they put it up on TikTok, a challenge caught fire. Next thing you know, everybody's doing it. You know, so now everybody is following that way of doing things. Because I mean, as a people, that's how we function. If I see someone doing something, I'm like, oh, he did it like this and like that. I'm thinking, if I do it the exact same way,
It's gonna work out.
then it's gonna work out. So in terms of a Zambian context, with releasing music and how it's made available in DSPs, I bring this up. In fact, let me start with you, Chanda, because I know, like, I've seen a couple of videos. You've been very vocal about how people access the music. You've been very vocal about them getting it the right way, so the artist can get not only recognition but actually get paid off the music that they're putting up. Because, you know, we all know there's sites where, you know, music is just put up illegally, and, you know, you find that it's got like couple of thousand and, you know, thousands of downloads, but it's not done the right way through the right channels, so the artist doesn't have access for them to get the payment off that. So I know you've been very vocal about that. So I'm gonna start with you. How do you feel about where the game is now, especially with the DSPs that have come on board? It's a big thing now, especially in Zambia, because now, like, you know, people will tell you that if they're putting something out, they'll choose a particular platform that works for them as a creative, because they know this is where they're gonna get their return for what they put into the project. So where do you think it's at right now? Do you think it's in a good place? Obviously, there's always room for improvement, but like, personally, like, where do you think it's at right now in terms of like music rollouts, dropping music, and everything like that?
Well, I mean, as for me, the frustration that I've had is not even because I think, you know, depending on how you assess the music industry at large, you know, and there's a lot of different opinions about how best to monetize music, but I guess probably as a matter of fact and statistically speaking, even if you look at the largest acts in the world and the most formalized market in the world, the minority of their earnings come from music sold as content. You know, so largely speaking, strategically, you know, if you're taking your career as an artist seriously, you don't necessarily want to underwrite your career based on selling of music. It's unlikely that that'll be your primary source of income. Right?
Won't be a bread and butter.
So that is a foregone conclusion. There's then debates about, I guess, how to monetize, right? But my whole frustration has not necessarily been about the monetary aspect. I mean, that is a consideration for me, because obviously, like I say, ultimately we need to, if we're gonna invest in these systems and gonna keep doing what we do, we have to be
money needs to stick coming in.
But my frustration on the content side of things is more about a digital footprint. What frustrates me about the Zambian ecosystem is that we're not fully digitized yet. So I would argue that we're like maybe 10 years behind the advanced economies, because there was a time where the biggest song, and this is just a few years ago, and I don't want to call anyone out, but like the biggest song in the country wasn't on Spotify. This is a song that plays in every bar, always on the radio, and this thing is not on Spotify. I'm like, bro, so there's a disconnect. It's like we live in this like other world, and the rest of the world doesn't know we exist. You know what I mean? So for me, priority number one was telling everybody, consume Zambian music digitally, and Zambian artists, make sure your stuff is there, so that your song, whatever genre it is, I don't care if it's, I'm not saying anything about no English what, no, I'm just saying all of you. Forget all those other debates. All of you Zambian artists, your song should be there. And we need that digital footprint, because that makes us more marketable. We can sell as a music industry out there. People are aware of the stuff. The TikTok challenge actually makes some sense. You know, like right now, actually, more than like 5 of my favorite Zambian songs ever are not on DSPs. Like,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
and these are like
Wow.
songs which are big songs. You know what I'm saying? And that's an issue. You know what I mean? Because it means we're getting left behind in the new digital music economy. So that's my primary frustration, because it means we're not in the ecosystem. We're not in the structure that the rest of the world is using as a portal for music discovery, and therefore the rest of the opportunities that follow on from music consumption. So I think we're a little bit behind, and it's unfortunate, but we're definitely getting there, definitely
Catching
making
up.
a lot of progress. So that's the good side, but that's my characterization.
Wow. Okay.
Very in depth. I don't know what to say after that. Yeah, I mean, it's around the same thing, man. I don't mind the new music has always evolved, from the onset of the internet, right? As soon as the internet showed up, something happened to music, just because of the internet being there. So, YouTube artists, Soulja Boy, etc, etc, you know what I mean? And now we had
Big
SoundCloud,
Draco.
and now we are getting TikTok artists. I don't mind any of that, man. If like you said, find your voice, man. Do what works for you. Like, it's difficult for me to be on TikTok because I'm not a TikTok user.
Okay.
As me, I don't have the app. You know what I mean? So
Shame on you as creators.
no, that's no slight to
Know
anybody
thyself.
using TikTok. There's just some things that are for you and some things that are not for you. I definitely implore every artist to obviously market yourself in every platform possible, right? My management is always telling me about
I started your TikTok.
yeah.
And you have the perfect name for it, man.
No.
TikTok. Your username is already
I'm gonna make my own app. But yeah, so I'm trying to get around to it, or trying to figure out how I can exist in that space. Because there's something known as corny. There's something, there's sometimes when you just, Bali, get off that app, please. Please, Bali, why are you screaming into your phone? You know what I mean?
The phone is here. The cafe is big.
Yeah, I find it I'm very self-conscious, and I always catch myself, even when I'm posting stuff, I'm like, why are you talking into your phone, man? What are you doing?
Yeah.
This thing is awkward for me.
But okay,
You know what I mean? It's a little weird for me.
Yeah, but that's a great thing that you just said, because now that goes back into what you guys were talking about, structure.
Yeah.
There should be people
In charge of that.
exactly
Yeah.
whose main priority is to make sure that your music
Yeah.
is in places where, like Chanda said, can be accessible. Now, you've both raised great points, because like we all know with DSPs, especially now, like what we're talking about with syncing, it's difficult to find someone to sync if they can't find your music in the first place. You know what I mean? So that everybody watching and listening, how you consume music is very important. For creatives, make your music accessible. Put it on the right platforms. Because that will limit the type of conversations we'll be having around the growth of the industry. You understand what I mean? So based on that,
I was gonna say, I'll go one further, because I think sometimes we perish for a lack of knowledge, and I think sometimes artists feel like they don't get very tangible guidance. So I'll go one further, and I'll say, for these conversations to happen, two things. Two things, and with a few sub bullets. But number one, I would say, is packaging of your recordings. Right. So a lot of artists don't prioritize having just even a WAV file. An artist will have an MP3 with tags from the website or whatever. Have a WAV file. And create that pack. The DJ pack. Yeah, the instrumental, the acapella, whatever. If you want to have a piano version, whatever you do, but have that packaged. You know what I'm saying? And have your metadata sorted. And I'll go even one further. If you're gonna have any sort of like business conversations about your music, do what's called a split sheet. I don't know how many people I've known, we barely do those in Zambia, but it's good to upfront. A split sheet, for anyone who doesn't know, is just the thing that says who the composition belongs to, right? So it splits out the percentages of that piece of work amongst the owners of that work. So as an example, just to make it very easy for anyone who might be listening, a typical split would be 50% to a producer and 50% to the songwriter. For a hip hop, typically the artist is
Yeah,
the
the
songwriter.
songwriter.
It gets more complicated for other genres where people have people who write the songs for them, and maybe there's multiple producers. So there's obviously permutations and combinations. But if you and your producer just write on a piece of paper, 50% of this belongs to Shinko Beats, 50% of this belongs to whatever your name is, and sign that document. That document will be necessary in submissions for that music to go anywhere and for anything commercial to happen for you. So that's putting you on
Number one.
Yeah, just so you guys sort out the packaging, have your wave files, have your instrumentals, your capellas, your what, and then make sure you have a split sheet. That's what else.
Are you going to also put them on game?
I'm taking notes. Split sheet. How you split it again? No, I feel you. I mean, for me, it's being independent for a while, you know, even just working with, I mean, other frustrations in the industry. You've just brought something up to me, right? It's how we treat the other aspects around the music, right? The flagship, the face is always the artist, right? But I wonder how producers eat in Zambia. Like, it's already wild for the artist, you know what I mean? But how about the person who's giving them the beats?
That's what I disagree. I actually think, in my view, my personal experience, the artist is the most disadvantaged person in the supply chain of music in Zambia.
For real?
Yeah, in my opinion. Because if you think about it, in my view, the artist always has very undetermined streams of income. Most producers will say, this is how much it is for a beat.
I see.
To record, this is how much.
I see.
To this is how much. And they must get paid normally spot cash, normally, unless you have some arrangement. But for the artists, it's you hope you make a hit and hope you get a show and hope you know what I'm saying? So your income streams only are variable. But then the graphic designer, he must be paid. The videographer, he must be paid. And these people have straight prices that they abide by. Now, what of you?
But that's what I mean is like like there's no longevity for the producer. Like you hear song X in Zed, right? You hear song X is the biggest song in the world. We rarely ever, like, if your song is really that big, is there a recurring payment for the producer? You know what I mean? It's sort of like a royalty thing going on with them.
I see.
That's what from that perspective, you know?
Yeah, no, from a back end perspective, no. But I think that what they get is recurring business because other artists are like, who made that song? You know what I'm saying? And they want that sound.
Goes back
and then they, you know what I'm saying?
The Jones factor.
Yeah, so I think that's how they sustain it. But no, there's definitely a wider conversation to be had about that.
Oh no, definitely. So we just found the content for the next one. We just found the content for the next one.
Yeah.
Gents, thank you very much for pulling up.
This is dope.
Very informative. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I learned. I learned something.
Split sheets.
You know?
Split sheets. And TikTok.
Bro,
that's
my username, bro.
Yeah, no. You may have actually just. I've never thought of it like that. Yeah, no. I'm joining now. I'm downloading the app right after we leave here.
There's gonna be a challenge for the next one to see if Dick actually has a TikTok.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Like, I'm an issue already with other social medias that have video.
Yeah.
Like, imagine me on TikTok. Think
we're gonna get it done. We're gonna get it done. They're
gonna shut us down in 5 days, bro. 5 days is what I give us.
No, but you know what? You actually gave us something to go on the next one. I think this conversation need to continue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The more we educate each other,
yeah,
the better the game gets. You know what I mean? And everyone wins. Shout out to you guys for everything that you're doing, you know what I mean? And for sharing and imparting your knowledge for everyone out there who's listening. Those who are willing to absorb, will absorb. If you don't want, you know what I'm saying? Otherwise, you know what I'm saying? Otherwise, till the next one, man. Keep it locked. Keep
Peace
it
and
locked.
love.
Keep it locked. Wow. Yeah!